I'm so excited because this is the official launch date of my new book, Prepare for Departure.
I've been lucky enough to know Mark for about 4 years now and seen this book grow from its early form to this just wonderful, hysterical, moving, powerful, and in a weird way groundbreaking, because I can't think of any memoir that's like this. It's something that speaks to me as a gay man, as a child with a single mom. It's about aging. It's about the world we live in now. It's about growing up gay. It's about seeing very attractive men in suits at a formative age and thinking, wow, I like that. I can't recommend this book enough. You're going to love it. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to think about the future, and think about the future with your own mom, as I do. Congratulations, Mark. You've written something that's one for the ages.
I totally related to your book. You took incredibly difficult themes and made them funny and dignified, and I love your story, and I wish that I had the passion as a young girl that you had to create your own fake airline. It's an impressive story, and I'm thrilled to be reading it.
Martis Alex. I am in Mark's writing group. We are a group of 5 people who meet every month and comment on each other's work. I first met Mark 5 years ago. I went to a writing class and I happened to sit next to him. He was the guy with the really cool blue shirt with airplanes on it. So I remember well the first piece of Mark's writing that I ever read. It was something that later turned out to be a chapter in his book, Prepare for Departure. And I remember the scene vividly. It is set in the living room of his family home. And Mark is 4 years old. And he's so excited because there are so many adults, family and neighbors and friends coming to visit, and they're all paying a lot of attention to him, and he thinks this is great. It's a party and he's getting a lot of attention. But he's too young to understand that this is a really serious event, because these are all people who are coming to pay their condolences because his father just died at a very early age. And Mark didn't understand dead. He didn't understand what dead meant. So he went running around yelling, "My daddy's dead, my daddy's dead." I'm sure just horrifying every adult in the place. And I think that that segment is really typical of the other chapters that I have read, which are a mixture of heartbreaking sadness and laugh your head off humor. I think that what I've read, the book has great appeal because it deals with issues that we all have to deal with: aging, loss of a loved one, figuring out who you are in the world. So I think it has universal appeal. I'm so proud of Mark that he's finished and is publishing this book. So I'd like to introduce you to the man with the very cool blue shirt with the airplanes on it, Mark Chesnut.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martis. I'm going to put the mic on my shirt, so I hope the sound quality will be okay. And I'm super excited because this is the official publication date. This is the first thing that we're doing in person to promote the book or talk about the book. It's my first ever book reading, so I'm a little bit nervous, and I'll probably speak a little too fast. So I'm purposely trying to slow down a little bit right now, but I'm sure it'll speed up later. The book is Prepare for Departure. It's about how my mother and I faced her declining health and her impending death in the last few months of her life, but also it's a story of how we look back and how the happy memories and the sad memories and the weird memories and all of that. So the book jumps back and forth in time to show the relationship between a mother and a son during what could be a very difficult time. But it's also kind of a humiliating book on a personal level because I share a lot of stories about stupid things I did as a kid, like the time that I pooped in the woods because I thought it was an initiation rite to join a gang of older boys in the apartment complex where we moved. So that was a little embarrassing. Or how I cruised a hotel outside of Columbus, Ohio as like a 14-year-old trying to entice anonymous traveling businessmen, and it didn't work. I didn't attract any of them. Or how my mother supported my obsession with travel and all things airline stuff. So she supported me when me and my best friend JJ in 7th grade played flight attendant in abandoned school buses that we found in a yard in a field near our house. She even turned a blind eye when we started stealing things from airports. So my mother, her name was Eunice Chesnut, and she was a very smart and very funny woman, and she was also very patient with some of the weirder aspects of my personality when I was growing up. It took her a while to adjust to the fact that I was gay. That took a little bit longer, but other than that, she was very patient. What she didn't have much patience for, however, was being pressured by a certain Southern Baptist minister during the calling hours for my grandfather in a funeral home in Western Kentucky. And for those of you who don't know what calling hours are, where my family's from, that's what we call a wake. I believe people in the New York City area call it more of a wake. My father died when he was 89. He was living in Brockport, New York with my mother and my aunt. And so they flew his body back down to Western Kentucky for the funeral and for the calling hours. And so we all flew down there too. And losing a parent, of course, is a difficult situation in any case. And my mother's was really good at dealing with difficult situations. I'm grabbing the book here. And being very patient with people, but she kind of lost a little bit with a certain minister. So it's a very funny moment. So I wanted to just take you on a trip now to a small, luxuriously carpeted funeral home in the small town of Benton, Kentucky, in Western Kentucky, not too far from Paducah, if that means anything to anyone. So this chapter is called Eunice Ignores Her Own Tips for Attending a Funeral. My great-aunt Bessie Ray was perplexed. My 1980s new wave hairdo distracted her so much that she could hardly pay any attention to my grandfather's body, which lay in the casket right in front of her. Instead of gazing at her brother-in-law one last time, she pointed to me from across the funeral home's viewing area. "Eunice, is that how all the kids in New York cut their hair nowadays?" she asked my mother. "It looks like someone just put a bowl on top of his head and cut right around it." Since I was several feet away and conversing with another great aunt, I pretended not to hear the booming voice above the hushed murmurs. But I had to admit she was kind of right about my hair, which was carefully crafted to bolster my 1980s fashion sense. My experimental cuts, designed to fit in with the alternative kids at my university, sometimes looked like they'd been executed in the back of a moving pickup truck, and the decidedly severe angles were certainly not a common sight in the funeral homes of Western Kentucky. I turned my attention back to Great Aunt Nancy, who was regaling me with tales of her trips to the slaughterhouse to pick up the hard animal fat known as suet. "The birds that fly into our yard just love it," she explained. "They could eat it all day, I can tell you that much." Fascinating conversation. Bessie Ray comes over. I bet you've never fallen face down in your yard, have you?" she interjects as she ambled quickly over to us, brushing loose curls from her forehead as she just ran a race. Her tongue swirled with excitement as she spoke. I fell real bad one day, real bad. I went out to the hen house to get me some eggs, and I fell backwards. Well, no sooner I got back up, the dog raced in and ate all the chickens. We lost all our chickens that day. Funerals can generate some of the most interesting conversations. And I already knew the routine for calling hours from previous family funerals. My mother and I passed peppermints to each other so that no one could tell we just had our favorite lunch at our favorite barbecue restaurant. And they clicked in my mouth as we both took turns standing next to the casket and greeting visitors, facing a flurry of perfumed hairspray and the soft, ancient hands of family, friends, and kinfolk. Several people asked if I was married yet. I politely responded in the negative and changed the subject to just about anything I could think of, skillfully shifting to questions about their families, about what was new at the Baptist church, about the town's most recent Tater Day, an annual celebration that includes food vendors and lots of potatoes, and or maybe also the Big Singin', which is an annual music event inspired by a 19th century hymnal called the Southern Harmony and Musical Companion. I was happy to discuss just about anything to avoid the topic of my personal life. A funeral home in Western Kentucky wasn't the right place to come out of the closet to random elderly folks. My mother had taught me well to always be agreeable with everyone and avoid potentially uncomfortable topics. But at one point, I noticed that my grandparents' Southern Baptist minister had cornered my mother near the casket. With his partial comb-over, his cheery, wide-lapelled blue blazer, and sizable tie with bold geometric prints. Remember, this was the 80s, although I think his clothes were phoned in from the 70s, probably. He looked like he was about to sell a quality pre-owned used car. I inched my way closer to introduce myself as he touched the sleeve of my mother's peach jacket and smiled. Eunice, it's a joyous thing that we will all be reunited with our loved ones in heaven when we pass away. Your father is blessed. Thank you very much for saying that, my mother replied, smiling back and nodding noncommittally. You do understand that, don't you, Eunice? Your father has been reunited with your mother, and you will be together with him again too someday. My mother smiled wider. Well, it gives us great comfort to know that my father believed that, she said, trying to diplomatically let the topic fade as quickly as possible. This guy was an active member of the clergy, after all, and was from the church that her parents had attended for decades. She wanted to be respectful. It's what her parents had taught her to do. Even though she'd never fully renounced her religious beliefs and had taken me to church nearly every Sunday for the first 17 years of my life, my mother had pretty much stopped believing most of the details of organized religion. She did value the social support that churches provided to people in need, however, and she envied people who had faith. But after years of pondering all the details, she couldn't bring herself to believe what any minister told her. And this particular preacher seemed unwilling to let her off the hook. His large eyebrows came together as his smile became more purposeful. He was entering full-on missionary mode, just as my mother was trying to keep her southern avoidance mechanism in the on position to keep things polite. But Eunice, you do believe that we will all be reunited when we join Jesus Christ, don't you? Heaven is waiting for all of us. My mother shifted in her open-toed shoes. Losing her father had been difficult enough, and her patience was growing weak. She raised her eyebrows as her smile took on an artificial glow. Well, I can tell you one thing, she said, putting a hand on her hip. If I die and go to heaven and see my husband, who hasn't been around since 1969, the first thing he's going to say to me is, "How'd you get so fat?" The minister's eyes widened. For a split second, his mouth opened with the beginnings of a confused smile that quickly evaporated. He stayed for a heartbeat more, and then he walked away silently. And then, just as quickly as it had snapped off, the southern avoidance mechanism of my mother flicked back on again. She turned to an elderly woman who stood a few feet away. She smiled warmly and extended her hand. "Thank you so much for coming. Pop would be so pleased to know that you're here." And that's it. That was my very first reading ever, so I hope it wasn't too long or too short, and I hope it was entertaining. I'm still learning the trade. Anybody have any comments or questions?
I like your accents.
Yeah.
Oh, you like my accents, thank you. So, and I write about that too a little bit in the book because I grew up with dual citizenship, Northern and Southern, because I was born and raised in Western New York State, which is very Great Lakes, and I can do that accent too. I grew up talking like this. But then everyone else in my family talked, with a Southern accent from Kentucky, so I learned to try to fit in with both. So thank you. Yes, Linda Neese.
How long have you lived in Kentucky? When did you move to New York?
I actually never lived full-time in Kentucky, but I just spent every vacation there for 17 years. Like, it was like summers, we'd be there for up to 6 weeks at a time, but then every Christmas also, and usually Easter, and sometimes other times too. So we'd go like 3 to 4 times a year for up to 6 weeks at a time. So I was always I went to school in Western New York State, but I just spent a lot of time in Kentucky, specifically in Western Kentucky and also a little bit in Louisville too.
Have you been back since?
Yeah, I've been back 3 times as an adult on my own and twice with Angel, and what I've learned, just like going back anywhere, I think, I go back to my hometown in Western New York, and when I was growing up, I thought, I have to get out of here, it's a little town. I go back now and it's really pretty, I appreciate it, and the same with Kentucky. When I go back to Louisville now, I realize, Louisville is like a pretty cool, like small to mid-sized city, and like you guys are foodies over there. Like Louisville is great for food and for booze. My family was Southern Baptist, so there was no booze, but now there is. So yeah, we've had really good times in Kentucky. So, and Louisville is like a bastion of liberalism, so it's a more accepting area for a lot of people like me. Yes, sir.
So when I came here and I saw this particular title, I travel a lot and you write about all these things. But I think you have touched a very sensitive topic about how people depart from our life and without any notice, and they just vanish in a single day. My question is, how difficult for you personally to prepare yourself to deal with these departures in your life, or how one can prepare themselves better?
Right. That's a really good question about yeah, and I can understand that the title is a little misleading because a lot of people know that I'm a travel writer, some people, and so if you know I'm a travel writer and you see the title of this, Prepare for Departure, it can be misleading. You think it's going to be all travel stories. And so travel is a big part of this book because it's a part of who I am, and it was an escape for me, and it fueled my life. But yes, as you know now, the book is about travel, but it's more about the departures and the journeys that we take in life that are more emotional. So yeah, so it kind of has a double entendre, the title. In terms of preparing, this was one of the most difficult departures that I've had to deal with emotionally in my life. So it was an interesting experience, and I felt like I didn't really get to prepare. It just kind of happens, and you do what you can, So, but it's difficult. Personally, this book happened because it was part of my therapy, really, that I had to deal with what I was going through emotionally, and people deal with things like that in different ways, So one of the ways, I guess because I was already a writer, I just started writing everything down. And so that's how the book happened. Like, I wasn't looking to make it a book. I just had to write it down for therapeutic reasons, and then it turned into a book, and I started going to the writing classes to help me form it more. So it's hard to prepare. Like, there's no set book that you can follow with rules that you have to follow with things like this. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I wanted to just ask, what was your biggest motivation factor behind writing this book, and why now? Why, yeah.
Very good question. Yeah. So, what was my biggest motivating factor? Was really, yeah, like I said, I started writing it not thinking I want to do a book. I just started writing it because I was going through so much mentally, emotionally, and so it just helped me to get it all out. And so I'd write down everything that happened with my mother, everything that happened during those last 9 months when she was living nearby here in the nursing home, and it just helped me it was therapeutic. And so that was the motivating factor to get me writing it at first. But then as I started writing all the sad things and difficult things, I also started getting happy memories bubbling up and funny memories. And every family, we have funny stories about what we did when we were little, or what our crazy uncle and aunt, whatever. And so I started writing that down. I started realizing, there's so many things that I don't want to lose. So the motivating thing was really just, I want to capture these moments. But then as I started sharing stuff with writing classes and getting feedback and stuff, and then early readers of the book, I realized that we all have stories to share, and so we don't have to be famous, we don't have to be Angelina Jolie to have a book about things like this, because they're things that everybody can relate to. People have gone through difficult times in their lives. So that was it, basically. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Laura Ceciliana Rosen.
Did you talk to many family members to sort of like work on those memories, right? Because you have them and you don't have any siblings to speak to. So how did you format the memories as they came up, and did you have to do some fact checking? I kind of remember this, but how do you remember it?
Right.
Did you do any of that?
I didn't do too much. So factually, yes. The question was, I've been told to always repeat because of the mic thing. So for people who are watching later, the question was about getting family input and fact checking about my memories and things like that. In terms of family input, there wasn't really too much. I do have my sister, and she lives in Los Angeles. She's a bit older than me, so we didn't actually really grow up together. She started college when I started high school. So I asked her a few questions about specific stuff maybe, but not too much, because she wasn't growing up at the same time I was. So she was living in Florida or Arizona when I was in 5th grade or 4th grade or whatever. So she helped a little bit, but I didn't have to bother her too much. And then most of the other people in my family that I write about are dead, so I didn't have to check with them. They can't complain about anything I got wrong. So that makes it a little bit easier. Yes, Tony?
Were you able to spend some time talking through these memories with your mom as you were still here in Jackson Heights?
Yes, yeah. I was able to relive some of the memories with my mother. Her short-term memory was fading. She had a brain tumor. As far as we know, she didn't have dementia or what's the other one? Or Alzheimer's. Yeah, as far as we know, she didn't have that, but she had a brain tumor, and so she was losing a lot of her short-term memory. But you know how it is with a lot of people. She couldn't tell me what she'd had for lunch on a certain day, but she could tell me what happened in 1947 when she'd go shopping in downtown Louisville and get all dressed up. So yeah, the good thing was that gave us comfort, I think. When she was feeling frustrated or confused about her present day situation, yeah, I could get her talking about like, oh, remember that time when we went out with Uncle Ed and Aunt Agnes and they did some crazy thing? So yeah, it was therapeutic for both of us. Yeah, she didn't know that I was writing a book because I didn't really know at the time, but she did know that I was writing some stuff. So it was a nice thing to share, actually, too. Yes, sir.
There's a live question right now.
Oh, there's a live question? Yes. Oh, from who?
The T-shirts for sale.
Oh, the T-shirts. They're not for sale, but maybe we should if somebody's asking for them. This is the official Prepare for Departure T-shirt. It's great for wearing on airplanes because it does get flight attendants' attention. Although I don't know if it'll get you an upgrade. But yeah, we'll look into. There's a way to do that. So we'll put the merchandise online. Yes, sir.
Will there be another book with the title Post Departure?
Will there be another book with the title Post Departure? Yeah, I don't know. There may be another book. I have ideas in my head. But yeah, what would the next thing be like? Upgrade or it has to have double entendre, be travel, prepare for arrival, right, upright and locked position, I don't know, something like that. So yes, Barb.
I'm wondering how your mother would feel about this book, and if she would agree with everything that you wrote, because I once had an argument with my parents, and we didn't speak for a while, and I had a version and their version was completely different from my version.
Interesting.
So I'm just curious, what do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a very good question about what my mother would think of the book. And someone else asked me that recently too. And I think that she wouldn't love the idea of the book, honestly, because she loved being on stage and she loved getting attention and stuff, but at the same time she was a very private person. And so I think that she would be a little bit uncomfortable with some of the personal stuff in the book. But at the same time, I think she'd appreciate it. And I think that, and also I go by her, I follow her belief system in terms of I don't think that she's up somewhere looking down and being embarrassed or down somewhere and looking up and being embarrassed. So I think that she'd be fine with the fact that I've done the book now. And in terms of like factual stuff, like saying this isn't how it happened, I don't know. I don't think she'd find anything too factually wrong, because a lot of the funnier stories especially are things that we both told, like family stories that you retell over and over again, kind of like family classic stories. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know what she would think. But in a way, I think she'd be uncomfortable or embarrassed. But other way, I think she'd like that we're documenting or telling a story that other people can relate to. So, yes.
You said the release of today is the release of the book, and if we ordered it on pre-ordered, would we? How long?
Oh, did you pre-order the book?
Yeah.
Okay. This is what's weird about the pre-order on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. The Amazon apparently is kind of strange, and you can't totally count on when it's happening, because this is the official release date. So anyone who pre-ordered should have gotten it, whether it was hard copy, the soft cover, the paperback, or the e-book today. But a lot of people didn't. But then other people have been getting the book for the past week. Like some people got it a week in advance, and it seems like the people who I know the best or I'm closest to are getting the book late. So if you're getting it late, that just means that that we're close friends. Oh yes, Suzanne.
And how do you feel about sending your life out into the world?
How do I feel about sending like sharing my personal life with the world?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird too, So because obviously you're making yourself vulnerable if you're sharing like personal stories like that. But at the same time, obviously, as I was writing it, I did leave some stuff out that that would have made the book probably better, and more people would have been interested in it. But yeah, like there's certain things like I won't say about myself or about my family, But you do have to go out. I think to make the book interesting, you do have to go out to a certain extent, because you have to show that you're human. And so, I tried to play up the more embarrassing moments that were personally like humiliating or embarrassing for me, because I feel like it makes you human and multidimensional, you know? So you have to go out there in order to like tell a good story. But it is kind of weird, and like not too many people have read the book yet since it just came out officially today, but it will be interesting to see, like some people have said, who have read parts of it or all of it, have said like, oh, I can really relate to this because this happened to me, or I got bullied when I was a kid. So what's cool about it is that putting myself out there it's helping me connect more with people, because we all have stories and we all have some certain things that we've shared. So it's really nice to hear from other people who've had similar good experiences or similar difficult experiences. So it connects us all on a human level, you know? It's cool. So anyway, I'm so impressed. I'm so happy. Thank you so much for all the questions, because I thought, like, I didn't plant a question this time, and I told Angel ahead of time, like, we need to plant a question, because if nobody raises their hand, I'm going to look like an idiot. So thank you all for coming up with such good questions, and thank you so much for coming out and making me feel comfortable on my first book reading. I really appreciate it, and like the Merkley Life, you all are amazing. The Sherwood neighbors are amazing, and all the Gotham people, and then Ozone. No wait. Kew Gardens, the Kew Gardens people, and all the Jackson Heights people. We have a really good group of people here tonight. So I'm sorry that those of you who are watching remotely can't join us, but we'll see you all in September if you can come to New York City. So thank you again, everyone. I really appreciate it.